Greetings, friends, and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Fire and Ice, the official podcast of your Coachella Valley Firebirds, two-time defending Western Conference champions of the American Hockey League. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, a mere postseason banner away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer. Along with this, I wanted to say bi-monthly endeavor, but now playoff endeavor. Also, again, have the pleasure of serving as your Firebirds Insider. Those Firebirds Insider articles may be found online, as with all things Coachella Valley Firebirds, at cvfirebirds.com. It's your hockey home and hub for everything, including, but certainly not limited to, tickets, merchandise, roster, community information. Per those tickets, yes, of course, we're in the second season. We're in the postseason. Those playoff tickets now available, as you would imagine. You can find them online at cvfirebirds.com. Some great deals, I noticed, by the way, as we endeavor this first round, this opening round. Also, easy access to acquire those tickets via the CV Firebirds application. Per the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort, also located right here in sunny Palm Desert, California, home to the Mountain View course, home to the Firecliff course, home and host to the on-site and excellent Palm Desert Golf Academy, just about 3+ miles away from Acrisure Arena. Make it a great putt-to-puck day. Go tee it up over at DW, then skate down Cook, cut over to Varner, take in a Birds playoff game. Great time, by the way, to be playing golf here in the Coachella Valley, shouldering toward the off-season. A little quieter, temperatures still idyllic. Go tee it up, make those tee times at desertwillow.com. Not alone on this playoff edition episode of the Fire and Ice podcast. A veritable cavalcade of stars. Did this format last year. Had a lot of fun with it. Going to run it back. Joining me on this episode, a couple local friends and one neighbor to the north. Welcome back, Tim O'Brien. Tim, of course, the lead sports anchor at NBC-Palm Springs. Also, your in-arena host and rinkside reporter for your Coachella Valley Firebirds. His bio is getting very lengthy. A more succinct bio may be found with our friend Shad Powers, longtime columnist for the Desert Sun newspaper. You can also find Shad's work, of course, on the internet at desertsun.com. Welcoming back, per last year's playoff series, Matt Rose. He's the Wranglers color analyst and co-host on the big show with Rusic and Rose on Sportsnet 960. The Fan. Had a lot of fun chatting with Matt last season. So like I said, we're going to run it back, welcoming the opposition to the Fire and Ice podcast yet again. All right, going to get to that Media Roundtable playoff edition here shortly. Let's clean up the desk here a little bit before we do so. Firebirds, of course, in the postseason for the third time in as many years of their existence. Haven't had this first round, this rapid-fire opening round, best-of-3 series since the inaugural year when, yes, the Tucson Roadrunners did take us the distance. Birds won the first game in that series. Tucson came back fast in Game 2 before the Birds felled them. I believe it was 5-1 in the third game. Last year, of course, Firebirds Pacific Division champions. We got that opening round bye before facing which team? Yeah, it was the Calgary Wranglers, and felling them 3-1 last year in the divisional semis. All right, so this best-of-3 series gets underway. I'm going to call it tonight because this episode is being recorded, both recorded and released on this Tuesday, April 22nd. Puck drops tonight for Game 1, Calgary at Coachella Valley, 7 o'clock Pacific. Puck drop. Again, get tickets for this game. Some awesome deals at cvfirebirds.com or via that CV Firebirds app. Got a couple concerts at our barn this week, pushing Game 2 back to this Saturday, April 26th. Wranglers at Firebirds. That is a 6 p.m. start. Series will conclude and extend to a Game 3 if needed. Asterisk, if needed, Game 3 would be this Sunday, April 27th, Calgary at Coachella Valley, 5 p.m. puck drop. We'll see if we get that far. A little bit of history, going to get into this with the gentleman here shortly, or I guess more than a little bit of history. Birds own a 22-11 all-time mark against Calgary. That is regular season and playoffs. Firebirds had a 6-2 record against the Wranglers this year, and as previously mentioned, faced the Wranglers in each of the last two postseasons, and now we're going to run it back, do it all over again. Firebirds this season, friends, finished fourth in the Pacific Division, earning them, yes, the number 4 seed heading into these Calder Cup playoffs. Record of 37-25, 5-5. That was good for 84 points on the year. That follows, worthy of note, 103 points in each of the Firebirds' first 2 seasons. Calgary finished 5th, of course. Record of 37, so they had the same amount of wins. 37-28, 4-3. That was good for 81 points. That 5th seed, as many of you know, came down to the final day, the final game of the AHL's regular season versus San Jose. Had the Barracuda won that, they would have earned the 5th seed. Calgary would have dropped to 6th and faced our I-10 neighbor Ontario in this opening round. But as it worked out, Calgary won that game on Easter Sunday for Goose. They earned the 5 seed. They are here in Palm Desert for this best of 3 opening round. Calgary, I think I mentioned, finished with 81 points on the regular season. Birds, a little bit of a soupy conclusion to the year with an 0-1-2 mark in their last 3 games. Probably also worthy of note that Firebirds, again, as many of you know, just a mere 8 home games in the months of March and April. Those are, of course, the 8 regular season home games, and just one of those notable heading into this postseason. Final home mark on the season of 17-13, 2-4. Better record on the road for the Birds of 20-12, 3-1. Per our players, Firebirds players, Ben Myers concluded the regular season as your Birds' leading scorer. 51 points in 57 games played, 23 goals and 28 assists for Ben. Had a great year for CV. Yanni Newman across 58 games played. Of course, welcoming Yanni back to the lineup. So enthused to have him and his talents back. 44 points. That includes a team-high 28 goals. Led the Firebirds in goals on the year, matched with 16 assists for Yanni. Logan Morrison, 42 points on the season. Played in all 72 games. He and rookie defenseman Ty Nelson were the only 2 Firebirds to appear in every regular season game this year. And a pair of defenders with 38 points each, Nick Brouillard and Max Lajoie. Max had 4 goals coupled with a team-high 34 assists to conclude the Birds' regular season. Per the netminders, let's just mention Nikke Koko finished the year 20-10-2. That earned him a deserved nod for the all-rookie team. Match those numbers with the goals against of 2.26 and a save percentage of .913. All 3 metrics charting in the top 15 in the American Hockey League, not just amongst rookies, but that is amongst all qualified goalies. All right, friends, let's get to this episode's Media Roundtable as we delve into this rapid-fire opening round of the Calder Cup playoffs. For the 3rd time in as many postseasons, our Coachella Valley Firebirds dueling against our Pac Division rivals, the Calgary Wranglers. All right, Firebirds friends, as prefaced earlier in this episode of Fire and Ice, we've got an all-star cast for this first round playoff duel, Firebirds versus the Calgary Wranglers. Let me introduce this trio of gentlemen. You know Tim O'Brien, he's the lead sports anchor at NBC-Palm Springs, along with the in-arena host and rinkside reporter for your Coachella Valley Firebirds, Shad Powers, columnist for the Desert Sun newspaper, where he covers the Firebirds, and online at desertsun.com, rejoins. And welcoming back to the Fire and Ice podcast, friend and foe, neighbor to the north, Matt Rose. He's the Wranglers color analyst and co-host on the big show with Rusic and Rose on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Gents, welcome and welcome back. I will start with this, a little spot of bother. Piece of concern, kind of a hirsute observation. You know I call for the playoff mustaches. I will have mine ready for tonight, but this is an audio medium. The only one I currently see with the mustache is Matt Rose. in Canada. So that worries me a little bit heading into game one. That observation aside, let's go with this. I feel like I'd be burying the headline a little as we've got some national news to share. Of course, our old friend Dale Bilesma, he's getting paid for 3 years by the Seattle Kraken, but only coaching them for but one. Realized yesterday and learned yesterday, relieved of those duties. Matt, I'm going to start with you in lieu of further alienating our friends to the north, and because, of course, you cover the National Hockey League. Your thoughts on that Dan Bilesma news?
A little bit surprising, but I think this is the type of year that you wanted some things to be a little bit different. I was there. There was the report I think earlier around the trade deadline that this was also an organization that had looked long and hard at Todd McClellan as being the head coach, and instead they decided to go to Dan Bilesma, and then McClellan ends up getting the job midseason in Detroit and just rattles off what 12 straight wins with the Red Wings or whatever it was to kind of get them right back into the playoff race. So a little bit surprised that he only got the 1 year, but obviously didn't see enough kind of change as it was a kind of average to poor season for the Seattle Kraken. And when that happens, you typically have to make some changes. And when we saw the little shuffle they're going to make to their front office here as well today. So um, I guess a little bit surprised because he had just signed the deal, but at the same time, when you don't get results, changing the head coach is something that you can control.
Based on mention of the Detroit Red Wings, that seems like a natural segue to Shad Powers, the Michigander. Shad, I think we're all in concurrence here in the desert proper. Seemed like a real short leash for our friend Dan Bilesma.
Yeah, I definitely was caught off guard by that. I mean, just in a general sense, I always feel like any new coach deserves at least 2 years, almost no matter what. I mean, of course, there can be certain disasters or a PR nightmare or something that would change that. But this was surprising to me. I figured he would get a decent leash. It is a little bit of an unusual situation too when you call up your AHL coach in that you're sort of continuing the string. I mean, obviously they were when he was with the Firebirds, they were doing all the things that the Kraken were doing to have a cohesive plan. So when he got up there to the Kraken, it seems like they would know what they were getting, if you want to say it like that. So it's kind of surprising to have such a short leash. The reasons why that come to my mind possibly is maybe they have another coach in mind that they feel like they've already got locked up that they feel better about would be a reason to do that. Or obviously, of course, there's always the possibility that there's some sort of behind the scenes clash that we don't know about too. So anyway, but I was definitely surprised, and I feel like it's a little unfair if it's just about the win-loss record.
Yeah, Kraken did have one more victory than they did last year under Dave Haxtell. Bilesma was able to accomplish that. Tim O'Brien, I turn it to you with both a question and I guess and a comment, man. I want to hear your observations and thoughts, but I'm also curious what you think if this could have some trickle down effect on the playoff version of the Firebirds.
Yeah, look, I think what to Matt's point, it's a result-driven business, but at the same time, you had success here in the Valley. You get the call up. You're keeping the system in place. Uh, the injuries didn't help Bilesma to say the least, and we saw the effects here at the Firebirds and how many guys kept coming up and down all season long. So yeah, I don't necessarily think he got a fair shake. But I had mentioned to you, Judd and Chad, I think off the record, Ron Francis and Peter Laviolette are extremely close. Laviolette gets let go by my New York Rangers, and I think that had an opportunity there to expedite the process. It's pure speculation, but why not? You want to bring in somebody that? Do you guys remember there was a rumor, uh, Elliot Friedman? There was a pretty good rumor that I would take seriously on the internet because we believe everything we see on the internet, but that there was a little disconnect between Ron Francis and Dan Bilesma about halfway through the season. So remember, Ron Francis had to come out and say, "Excuse me, that's not true. I hired him. I want him here," because there was the rumor that he didn't want him as the hire. But so I think there's more to it than just results, and we may never know. But now they're looking for their third coach in however many years.
Make it 3 years, three coaches in 3 years, as per that Kraken bench. I guess as Matt referenced that presser hasn't taken place. We're a few hours shy of that as of this recording, but firmer rumor and conjecture that Jessica Campbell will be staying on the Kraken bench for whomever is the team's head coach next year. All right, dudes, let's get to the business at hand. This is not a Kraken show nor an NHL show. Back to the playoffs. Back to a familiar duel between the Firebirds and the Wranglers, now meeting in the postseason for the third time in as many years. Matt, I'm going to bring it back to you. Came down to the last game, the last day of the AHL regular season. Was there anything that you were hoping maybe the Wranglers might tank that game against San Jose and that you would face our I-10 rival Ontario in lieu of facing the Firebirds in the playoffs yet again?
Not really. It's not like the Wranglers have played overly well against Ontario either. It's not like either opponent was a better choice for them. And I think that there's a certain aspect of getting to kind of vanquish your demon finally that also could be something that this team kind of can use as a little bit of extra motivation. Of course, they've faced off the last 3 years, or this will be the third year in a row, and the Firebirds have won all three of those, or the two prior. Typically, it's been later in the playoffs than the first round, but both these organizations are kind of not having the same years that they were the last 2 years when they just come into the AHL. So I think that the bigger thing was that they actually played well in that finale after kind of getting their doors knocked in on Friday in a matinee against that same Barracuda team. They were able to go out and get a good performance from their goalie, and with the return of Sam Morton and Hunter Brustevich and Dryden Hunt, able to just kind of feel good about their game going into the playoffs. And there hasn't been a whole lot to feel good about in the second half of the season here. So I think that was probably way more important than trying to pick your opponent in a position like this.
Yeah, the Wranglers weren't alone in having some question marks in the home stretch or latter half of the season. I think the Firebirds also can fall under that category. Won just four of our final 10 games, 0, 1, and 2 in our final three. And across the 8 home games the Firebirds played, just a mere 8 home games in March and April, just one victory at Acrisure Arena across those final 2 months. Seems a bit inexplicable, but that's what the stats bear out. Shad Powers, I bring it back to you. Had a lot of success in the postseason, a lot of success against Calgary this regular season, going 6-2 against the Wranglers. Your thoughts on this matchup? Is this the one you wanted to see in lieu of facing the Barracuda?
I know, right? I mean, it's so obvious to say that, it'd be better to face a team that you went 6-2 against than the Barracuda, who sort of had our number this year. But I kind of building off of what Matt said, I'm a little leery of a team that, has a reason other than just winning playoff games to beat you. They want to get some revenge. I know the AHL level isn't quite the same as maybe the top level when it comes to that, because you got so much turnover. But there's maybe Matt even knows the number, 7, 8, 9 guys over there that have been through these last two series, and there's no doubt they're going to have extra motivation. Whereas the Firebirds guys might have the opposite. Not that we have a few holdovers from those years. Will they have the same motivation as Calgary? I think it's going to be tough. So in that regard, I'm a little leery of this Wranglers team. I think they're going to have an excellent motivation. They do seem to be playing better the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks than they were in that tough stretch they had. And as we know, the Firebirds have not been exceptional the last 6 weeks, let's say. So I don't know. I don't love the Calgary matchup just because there's that extra motivation I feel like exists for the Wranglers.
Tim, whether it be said motivation that both of these gents referenced, or that I think Jacob Melanson in our final home game press conference of the season also said basically verbatim, whether it be that or some of our suspect home play across these past 2 months, how's your confidence, Tim, heading into this rapid fire best of three?
Yeah, Melanson did say that they certainly have added ammo to get in here and, and get it done. Yeah, there's some concern. I'd lie to you and say if I think we wanted Calgary over San Jose. No, the whole division was good this year. It was definitely advanced and had gotten better. And I don't know, the way they've played down the stretch here and how they've played at home over the last 2 months certainly doesn't make you feel great going into this series. And then you see the way Calgary played there in that last game. It's going to be interesting. There's certainly a lot of concern and we know when we say who we'd want to, like last year, we want Hershey again. Yeah, well, we know how that that ended up. So, careful what you wish for, man. There's anybody can win on any given night, and especially in this 3-game series, or the best team doesn't always win, and it can be over real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that momentarily. Let me first turn it back to Matt and reference this. I mean, you talked about, Matt, the players that the Wranglers got back. An interesting season for Calgary. You guys got out of the gate so damn hot, 14-5-1 in October, November, and then finished the season 8-15-2-3. I think that included 8 consecutive losses in February, and then just a couple wins, one of which was over the Firebirds in the month of March. What happened to this team? Why was it such a tale of two seasons?
There's a couple of things that certainly stand out to me. You got to start the season with a guy like Jacob Pelletier, who, for my money, is an NHL player, and of course he gets traded over to Philadelphia, so you don't have that luxury. The other would be Walker Dewar, who was a guy that when he got called up to the Flames was a top 20 point scorer in the AHL, playing on the second line in Calgary, and they tried to sneak him back in, and he ends up as a member of San Jose's organization and now playing with the Barracuda after they send him back down. You also had a guy in Devin Cooley who came in and at the start of the year looked like he was gonna be a easily goaltender of the year nominee, maybe even a guy that you start talking about in the MVP conversation, much like Dustin Wolf the year before. And after he had an injury prior to the All-Star break, he's just never kind of been able to find his game again, to the point that you even wonder if it's going to be Valtteri Ignatieff who gets to start in game number one here down in Coachella Valley after his shutout in the final game of the regular season. So you have obviously some turnover with some different players. Dryden Hunt was up with the Flames for a lot of the back half of the season. Solovyov had been up with the Flames for a little bit, things like that. But even more so is that this is a team that needed to have Trent Cull up with the Calgary Flames. They had one of their other assistant coaches leave due to personal reasons. So Trent Cull got called up, and Cull did a great job with the penalty kill up with the big club. And you could just see how things really changed defensively when he was away from the group. Now he's been reassigned, or I guess he's rejoined the team, not necessarily reassigned, but he's rejoined the team. He's shaved his mustache. He's ready to coach in the postseason. But at the same time, he's been gone for a long time. So it's kind of like, you're the owner of an apartment, and you've had that thing rented out as an Airbnb for months now, and you come back and kind of see what the damage is and try and clean it up as quickly as you can before you have family over for a big dinner or something like that. And I assume that's kind of what he's trying to do right now is he's getting the Wranglers all geared up. And on top of that, right, they finish the regular season Sunday and they start the postseason Tuesday. So they're the last team to play in the regular season, the first team to play in the postseason, and that's a real tight turn for the group. So there's certainly some questions about what the roster is going to look like for game one with everybody that's kind of been added through college and sent back down from the Flames, and just Trent Cull being there instead of Joe Sorella making the kind of final decisions on roster. But those would be the biggest things that I kind of point to. And they're the things that every AHL team will go through over the course of the year. You're a farm team. You deal with call-ups and whatever based on what the big club really needs. But this year really felt like in the second half of the season, it had a big impact on kind of the roster and particularly the way they defended. And Devin Cooley falling off certainly didn't help. When you kind of have some young players on defense, they're going to make some mistakes, and you got to get bailed out by your goalie, and he wasn't necessarily doing that.
Shad Powers here in the desert proper, also no shortage of moving parts this season, far more than we saw the last two seasons, which offered a lot of continuity, and that continuity led to a lot of success. What we saw on the final home games roster and ice, I think, was kind of a playoff preview of what we've kind of waited a couple months for our roster to look like and see exactly what the lines and who is going to start, who is going to play where. We've waited a while to see this health wise, transaction wise. Even though we lost that game against a really good Abbotsford team, did that give you some comfort that, like, okay, this is what our postseason lineup is going to look like?
It does feel like we know a little bit more about the personnel we're going to see out there, but I feel like, I mean, obviously we know this roster is not as loaded as it has been the last 2 years, and I think that's kind of the different sort of internal feeling I have about this team this year. Is like the last couple of years, I felt like the Firebirds had more talent than the opposing team. So if both teams played well or both teams played poorly, the Firebirds would win. I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like for the Firebirds to win playoff games starting tonight, they have to actually play better than the other team. There's no, they don't have any leeway to have a mediocre game, let's say. So that's what I think. That's kind of how I'm going into this playoffs with a different feeling than I have before. But yeah, seeing those lines come together a little bit, of course, getting some of our more talented players back from the Kraken, it does feel like there's a little more, chemistry and confidence than we've had, in the sort of month and a half leading up to that. Goalie situation will be interesting. Obviously, Nikkei Koko has had a great year, but obviously he's young. Our other playoff runs have both come with veteran goalkeepers. So those are when I look at the roster, I still have question marks, of course. Offensively, they're just not a high scoring team like they were the last couple of years. So there's reason to be dubious, but you're right. The last couple home games did make me feel like, okay, at least we kind of can see who's going to be here, and there's some positive thing to look at.
Tim O'Brien, turn it back to you, man. Seeing Yanni Newman, seeing John Hayden back, Gustav Olofsson healthy, even Ales Stejka made his return now healthy. Just a lot more of the veteran presence and guys that had spent time in Seattle now back with us in the desert. Did that give you a little more comfort than seemingly gave Shad Powers?
Well, honestly, yeah. I'll tell you this. On Sunday, when was it Sunday or Saturday? 1-1 in the third against Abbotsford, a good Abbotsford team. And I had that brief moment where I said, okay, they can compete. They look good. And then the wheels just fell off. So, I spoke too soon. I said to myself or somebody I was working with that I jinxed it. But yeah, Shad's right. The previous years, they had talent on the roster. If they weren't playing their best, they could still figure out a way to win. This year, over the last month or two, Derek Laxdal had said, hey, our team's playing pretty well. We're just not getting the results. And you don't have room for error like that in the postseason. So I think that, they've got to just physically be better overall. It sounds cliche, but they've got to start getting in some of those dirty areas. John Hayden has to play the role of Max McCormick. Hayden's not going to go out there and score, 2-3 goals a night or put up 8 goals in a series. So he's got to get into those dirty areas and kind of play a different role. And I'm sure it's hard. These guys, yes, he was here for a bit and then up in Seattle for a bit, but that's the business. And Seattle's out of it now, and you've got a game here and a series here in the Coachella Valley. You're here for a reason. You got to go out and play it. And I'm interested to see. You brought up Coco and Matt. You brought up whether or not Cooley or there might be a goalie controversy, so to speak. I asked Derek Laxdal yesterday. I said, you've got 2 good goalies, both healthy. Coco's playing out of his mind. Steska's the veteran. I said, you don't have to disclose your plan. I said, but is there a game plan or is it day by day? And he looked at me and goes, yeah. And that was it. So I get
Great
It's
answer.
around playoffs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, good scoop.
Folks, you're tuning into the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. My guests, respectively, are Tim O'Brien, Matt Rose, and Shad Powers. Let's stick with that goalie conversation for a moment. I mean, it appears that a couple of rookie Finns might be our starters in game 1 tonight. Shad referenced Nikkei Koko, more on Nikki momentarily. And Devin Cooley, man. Matt, you talked about him. Yeah, he was injured. I mean, we talked to Devin during the All-Star break when he was here in Acrisure Arena as a Wranglers representative. And then just an absolutely morbid latter half of the season. I think he played in 23 games, or he appeared in 23 games, and won just 4 of those. Inversely, Walter Ignatjev, probably butchered his name, sorry, Valteri. He appeared in all 4 of the Wranglers' last games. Didn't start one of those, had to spell Cooley in one. So we've got a couple. He's 25 years old, but still an American Hockey League rookie. As Shad referenced, the Firebirds the last 2 years, year 1, Joey Decord, every playoff game. Last year, Chris Drieger, every playoff game. Tim tried to get something out of Derek Laxdal about who we might see. Maybe a little Stejka, maybe a little of the Swede, Victor Ostman. But we really don't know. And going into the playoffs, can you trust a rookie? We got a 21-year-old kid. You have a 25-year-old rookie. I'll take it back to you, Matt. I mean, where do you think the trust lies heading into the postseason for the Wranglers, net?
Well, the interesting thing too is that Devin Cooley's not someone who's been here for a few years. He's a guy that they brought in kind of in the off season, and as much as he played very well at the start of the year, he's been well in the second half of the year, he just hasn't been the same netminder. And Ignatiev over the last, I want to say 6 or 7 starts, has actually played well. He gets his first AHL shutout. He's only given up 1 goal in 3 of those starts. He gave up 2 goals in another. There was a couple of maybe rougher outings. He gave up 4 on 24 against Abbotsford, but they ended up winning that game and breaking the Canucks win streak in that contest too. So to me, I think you have to go with Ignatiev. He's just looked the guy that's kind of feeling himself right now. I love, just Devin Cooley, kind of the character, and I would love to see him have success. But especially in a short series like this, I think you have to go with the guy that's just playing the hottest right out of the gate. And to me, that's Ignatiev, who, yeah, you mentioned 25. He's not the same type of rookie. He's not, just out of the NHL draft or something like that. He's a little bit different. He's been overseas. He's one of those guys that the Flames goaltending guru Jordan Sigalet at the top of their goaltending department had identified as someone they wanted to bring over, and he's been solid here in his first year as in North America. Maybe some ups and downs, but solid out the stretch. And he's a guy who's had success kind of in the second level of the Swedish league, the second level of the Finnish leagues. So he's had success before as a netminder, just not on the smaller ice at this level, playing this style of game. So right now, he's the guy that's coming off his first AHL shutout. He played really well in that final game against the Barracuda too. So I got to think that it's him, but I'm also ready to be surprised because, like we talked about, Devin Cooley has also shown that he can play extremely well. But that's definitely one of the top decisions that the Wranglers coaching staff has to make before puck drop here this evening.
Birds, of course, familiar with Devin Cooley in the postseason when he was with the Milwaukee Admirals. Regular listeners might also mention that he's got a lucky bunny. He likes to put a picture of that bunny
Tito.
over his locker. Hasn't been that lucky the last couple of months. That poor bunny. I worry about that poor bunny. Shad Powers back to DK Coco. Even though Tim could not get an answer about who or whom our starter or starters might be, I got to think that it's going to be our 21-year-old Finnish rookie. He's been a stud all season long. He's got playoff experience from the top league in Finland, where he led his team to the finals last year. Are you cozy, and is that what you expect to see with Coco, at least throughout this first round?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Yeah, I'd be stunned if it's not Coco tonight. It was interesting hearing Matt describe their goalie situation. You could almost just replace the names. We love Steska personality wise. We'd love to see him succeed, but boy, you just can't deny the numbers of Coco. And obviously we're not 100% sure on Steska's full health or how he stands right now. So definitely got to be Coco tonight. I think there's just no doubt about that. We do have a back-to-back hypothetically coming up this weekend, so that might make someone try to make the decision tougher. But yeah, I think it's going to be Coco, and there's reason to be confident. I mean, he's the best rookie goalie among the top 10 goalies, I think, in goals against average. Really had a fantastic year. But like you said, there's the playoffs is a different story. Can you trust a rookie? I think you have to find out tonight. But yeah, it's got to be Coco tonight, and probably this whole series, I would have to assume.
Tim O'Brien, Alish Stejka, had such a great year last year. I think he would probably admit that even with injury, did not have a super season this year. And now he's played in just 3 games since February 16th, one with the Kraken and 2 with the Firebirds. Are you expecting to see Coco throughout this first series? And if so, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, for sure. And my gut certainly says Coco, and I'm definitely confident in him and feel good with that. Even if Coco wasn't playing as well as he has, I think you have to go with him just based off of what you just said of Steska playing 2 games since what did you say, February?
February 16th,
Yeah,
3 games, 2 games with us, one with Seattle.
So that's not much. So yeah, I think you got to ride Coco here, even the series, unless something just drastically happens horribly over the next 24 hours. But yeah, you got to go with Coco.
Quick hitter for each of you, gentlemen. Matt, I'll go back to you. We know that the Wranglers have some very talented scorers in the lineup. Rory Cairns, chief among them. He had himself a fine year. I think he was fourth in the league in goals with 33. If there's one factor, one key deciding factor in this series that you think could take the Wranglers on to the next round, what might that be?
Yeah, some timely goals would be good, but the thing that stands out to me is how is this team going to defend? Because, Rory Cairns has also played center. They've moved him off to the wing, and then kind of rolled with some other centermen to play with him there. I just think that this is a team that when they're playing at their best, they're breaking up plays in their own zone quickly. They're not spinning their tires in their D zone, and they're getting on the forecheck. So for me, the biggest thing is just, can you defend well? Can you avoid the kind of mind-numbing turnovers that just make coaches pull their hair out, because that's become a little bit too common in their game lately. And to me, that's where it begins. Like, this isn't Dustin Wolf between the pipes where you can give up 10 grade A chances in a game and still hope to win. Like, both these goalies will give up goals if you're going to give great chances to the opposing players ad nauseum. So that would be my biggest thing. I think Cairns is a guy that can score you a couple big goals here and there, and then Sam Wharton might end up having a big impact on this series, and Brustevich from the back end. But if this isn't a group that's going to be able to defend very well in front of their goalies, I think they're going to find themselves in some trouble.
Shad Powers, same question to you. Kind of a quick hitter. Key thing for the Firebirds to move on to the next round.
I need to see some more production out of what we call our veterans, the guys that have been on this team, if not the last 2 years, definitely last year. I mean, they've got playoff experience, obviously, from being on the Firebirds. But I want to see these guys, of course, like you mentioned, Hayden, Cale Fleury, that's some nice veteran presence there. And then, they don't have to score goals, but they just need to play well, and then maybe get some goals out of these guys like Winterton, Melanson, Morrison, some of these guys that have been through the wars, 2-year Firebirds. I just need to see more production out of them. We're happy. We've got Newman. We've got some young guys. Ben Myers is our leading scorer, but we just need to find some more offense from some guys. If you line up every player in the series, the 5 of the top 6 point scorers are Calgary Wranglers. We don't have scoring guys, so people need to fill in those holes. That's what I need to see, some more offense from the veterans.
Tim O'Brien, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll piggyback that. You can't score if you don't shoot. And I think Lax has said in quite a few press conferences this year, it's been too cute. So just get the puck to the net. Stop slinging it around and hoping for a dirty goal. Just shoot. Shoot the puck, because defensively, they're going to be okay. I'm not worried about that at all, the back end.
Personally, I'm looking forward to what would appear to be our second line, the Wrecking Crew line. Jacob Melanson, Mitchell Stevens, and young Nathan Villeneuve, seeing if they can do some real forechecking damage against what is a bit of a suspect blue line for Calgary, along with some unknowns in the net. Let's close out with this one, fellas. Matt, I'm going to turn to you. One more, man. Best of 3 series. I guess this is a 2-part question for each of you. Does the winner of tonight, does the winner of game 1 take this series? And ultimately, what do you see as the result of this series?
I'm going to take Wranglers in 3, and I will say yes, the winner of tonight goes on to win the series.
Shad Powers, to you, sir.
Good. Now, this is going to contradict everything I've said so far. But no, I'm gonna take the Firebirds in 2, and here's why. I think if it does go to a game 3, then I definitely like the Wranglers. I think there's pressure on the Firebirds to sustain this great success. Whether they, not everybody on the Firebirds has been part of these teams, but I think there's a level of pressure there. So if it goes to a game 3, I agree with Matt. I think the Wranglers will win that, because that's going to be, I just feel like there's a pressure overload at that point. But I do feel like the Firebirds maybe have been like limping to the playoffs to get, I think they can turn up that notch. Something about this Wranglers team sort of fits their eye. It seems like some of their best scoring games have been against the Wranglers. I don't know, something small about the way they play works for the Firebirds. So I'm going to say Firebirds in 2. But if it goes to 3, then I like the Wranglers. Is that cheating?
No. I like that one, because I sense that Tim O'Brien is going to select something different.
Yeah, we've seen in years past that you win the first game or lose the first game, you can still win the series. So I don't think that's detrimental, but I do think the Firebirds, having played so poorly at home, they've got to win this one for some confidence tonight. I will take the Firebirds in 3, just because I've got plans on Sunday night, and that's just how things work. So we will absolutely have to play on Sunday, and I'll have to blow my plans up. But I'll go Firebirds in 3.
I'm going to match that prediction from Tim O'Brien. I guess it goes back to what we saw in our only best of 3 in franchise history, when we felled Tucson and what became a tense opening round. It came out really well. Won that first game. Tucson came out really hot. I think scored 3 goals in the opening period of game 2. Firebirds ultimately crushed them in the third and final deciding game. I believe that was 5-1. I'm going to go with Firebirds in 3, but biting my nails a little bit that we grabbed this one tonight and take a 1-0 series edge. Gentlemen, look forward to the series. I hope that we all have a nice time, and that I know we are on some different sides of the spectrum here, but I hope we all enjoy what is an exciting opening round series. Whoever you're backing, whomever you might be rooting for, Tim O'Brien, Shad Powers, and Matt Rose coming to us from Canada. Appreciate all your time. Enjoy the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs, fellas.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys. All right, Firebirds flock, that's going to wrap it up for this playoff edition of the Fire and Ice podcast, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. And hey, I'm biased, I'll admit it. As long as the Firebirds go, so goes this show. Fingers crossed hard that we got some more shows to go. Advance past this opening round and have more episodes of Fire and Ice delving deeper into these Calder Cup playoffs. Before then, and now, in the interim, allow me to thank my guests in this episode, this roundtable, Tim O'Brien, Shad Powers, and Matt Rose. Appreciate all of their respective times. Great to chat with those boys. Equal appreciation and gratitude, of course, goes to the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort, right here in Palm Desert, California, home to the Mountain View and Fire Cliff courses, respectively. 36 prime and awesome holes. Get those tee times for either or both courses online at desertwillow.com. And when you're on there, hey, in spring season, summer season, you're looking to improve your game, you're looking for some expert swing tutelage, be sure to check out the excellent and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy. It's right there. Great space, great practice area, great teachers, great instruction. Go check out my man Paul Busey and crew at the Palm Desert Golf Academy. Again, you can find it all online at desertwillow.com. Additional thanks, of course, go to you, gentle listener. So thankful for your time, your interest, your ears, your ongoing support of this endeavor as we delve yet again, for the third time in as many years, into these Calder Cup playoffs. Quick reminder of what, again, is a rapid-fire first-round schedule. It is a best-of-3 this Tuesday, April 22nd. The series gets underway. Calgary at Coachella Valley, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific puck drop. Tickets may be found online at cvfirebirds.com. There's some great deals to be had. Or even an idiot like me can figure out how to do it on the handy and easy CV Firebirds app. Game 2 played this Saturday, April 26th, Calgary at Coachella Valley. That is a 6 p.m. start. And then, if needed, a deciding Game 3 will be played this Sunday, April 27th. That game, if necessary, will be held 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time right here in Palm Desert, California, on the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. As for tonight, as for this evening, as for Game 1, we'll look forward to seeing you over at the Birds Barn, making some noise as the Birds aim to advance in the Calder Cup playoffs yet again. Until then, thanks again for tuning in, friends. And remember, as always, one valley, one team, rising together.